Hello friends, another video from Drywall Repairman. On this channel we have mostly videos of drywall repairs such as patching, stress cracks, texture matching, small jobs, easy jobs, do-it-yourself type jobs. We are on the job working, so as I'm working I'm trying to make simple videos to show you guys how to do watch and learn type videos. So let's go ahead and jump into the video here and see what's involved. Also, at the end of the video, please subscribe, like, and comment, and jump in the other playlists and watch my other videos. Hey, thanks for watching this video.
Alright, so as you guys seen watching this video, this patio gets west facing abuse. The fascia board doesn't really protect the ceiling, the patio ceiling here, so it takes a lot of wind abuse. That's why there's more damage on this side compared to this side. So the stuff gets old, dries out. The original tape is paper. We dig out all that old flaky stuff. The homeowner here already tried to make a repair themselves. Then they figured out drywalling isn't their specialty, so they called me in. So basically that's a L bead, finish L bead on the edge. You can trim it with wood, but most of the time they do L bead like that. The L bead they just nail in or staple in. Over time those staples back out and then it starts falling down. You can see their neighbors over here, all their L beads falling down just from lack of maintenance and repairs. So these homeowners try to repair it themselves, then they called me. So what I had to do is scrape all the loose stuff, the loose tape seams. The actual L bead, corner bead needed to be reinstalled, adding screws to tighten it up. I like to do screws every couple inches, tighten it up, scrape all the loose stuff off. You notice in the video I was using a spray glue. You don't have to go crazy with the spray glue. You don't even have to really use a spray glue. But I like to put spray glue on these old patios because they're dusty. And it helps the tape bond. It helps the mud to bond. It's not a proven theory practice, but it's saved me more times than I can believe. So I always use these spray glues whenever I can get them. You're not saturating the sheetrock with the spray glue. You're just doing a fine mist, cover it up. If you really want to go the distance, you can scrape all the drywall here, scrape everything, all the loose stuff, and you can re-primer the ceiling area where all the rough spots are. Re-primer it with like a Kills or a primer blocker sealer. Then the mud will really bond to those sealers. But this is the next option, is doing a spray glue. Scrape all the loose stuff, spray glue, re-fiberglass. I like to always fiberglass mesh tape my corner beads. You're not going all the way over the corner bead, you're just covering the edge of the corner bead, and that way it never cracks out. I know if you notice in corner beads in houses, and sometimes you'll see corner bead that's popping, cracked. Original build, if they would have did a tape the corner beads, they would never crack. So I always like to try to put screws to tighten up my corner beads, and then I always fiberglass mesh tape. The fiberglass mesh tape is just a extra insurance, knowing that the area is not going to re-crack out. That fiberglass mesh tape, once it's on there, it creates a strong bonding bottom for the mud to really bond into the mesh, and it's a really strong material. They do use paper tapes. I know you'll probably go through YouTube all the time and there'll be so many different tapes out there. Paper tapes were done original build when they used the bazooka. The bazooka goes through and it tapes all the sheetrock when they're doing 10 sheets to 1,000 sheet jobs. They use a bazooka, but that's a crew, and they use a paper tape to go through the bazooka. Repairs like this, I'd say any job, I would say under 10 sheets of sheetrock, just stick to your fiberglass mesh tape. There's so many different tapes out there. Everybody says which one's better, but I just use a regular fiberglass mesh tape. Nothing special. I know there's other ones that have more properties, stronger properties. Use it for this part, use it for that part. Your go-to is just your fiberglass mesh tape. As you can see, our fiberglass mesh tape the corner beads, the joints, scraped all the loose areas. So we're going to go ahead and mix some hot mud. I got some fresh clean water. Always use fresh clean water on your mudding projects. Sometimes that mud gets in your water and it gets dirty, and then when you go to mix up other muds, the dirty water activates the hot muds and makes them set up quicker. So we always like to use a fresh bucket of water. We're going to mix a hot mud. If this was just your job, you can just use a joint compound. Joint compounds you have to let dry overnight. Hot muds, I have to finish this job in one trip, so I got to use hot muds. I'm using a 5-minute mud, which you have to work really fast with. I like the 5-minute muds that I always use instead of carrying a 5, 20, 40, 90 minute. These smaller jobs I just do with the 5-minute, and I just do a pan at a time. Well, a project like this, I could probably mix less than a half a bucket at 20-minute or 40-minute and coat everything. But usually the 20 or 40 minutes always take longer than that time frame they give to set up. I've done 20 minutes and they take 40 minutes to set up. I've done 40 minutes and it takes 60 minutes to set up. So the 5 minutes a good thing to use when you're doing pan at a time. 2 pans of mud should coat all this. I'm going to get it all first coated. As hot mud sets up, I'm going to slick it out. Slick out the hot muds, and then hopefully I probably can get away with texturing it, but I might need a tight second coat of hot mud. So we're going to get it coated, maybe 2 coats on this, and then we're going to follow it through with a rough skip trowel. The skip trowel I do with the joint compounds. You watched all my videos. This is a very common texture. Vaulted ceiling here, nothing special. I like to use these ladders here. It's like a little giant knockoff, but these are good ladders for adjusting. They're strong, so you can straddle both sides. So I like to use these ladders. People do or don't like them, but these are my favorite kind of ladders. I feel safer on them. It says 400 pounds, so it can hold 2 of me. But we're just going to go ahead and get this first coated. I'm not going to really get crazy with talking. If you watch plenty of my videos, you already know the step process. I'm just making these kind of videos seem like they're repetitive, the same videos. This is drywall repairs. So maybe you have a patio like this that you're trying to do, and this is a reference for you. If this is your project, this is why I made the videos, to help you. But this is a common repair area on a patio ceiling when they start peeling. Once they get this all drywall textured, they're going to let that texture dry at least 24 hours, and their next step would be to primer these new patios. After you get the drywall redone, re-primer the whole patio like a Kills primer. Just paint the whole thing with primer. It reseals it and protects it from the heat, the weathering, and then do a high quality exterior paint. I don't recommend flat paints on a house. They always do flat paints. Flat paints tend to need more painting after the years. I like to do an eggshell to a semi-gloss paints. Especially on a patio ceiling, you want to use an eggshell through semi-gloss. That way it helps protect it from the heat. You're getting wind, heat, there's a lot going on here. I recommend the homeowner put something there, extend the fascia or something to protect the sheetrock from getting so weathered. But we're just going to go ahead and get this repaired. I'm going to go ahead and mix some mud and then just watch along. So we're just using a hot mud. Look at this, I splurged and got a new 6-inch knife. My other knife was getting pretty bad shape. These knives will last a long time, but once in a while you want to buy a new knife. Like all my videos, I keep my hot muds in a bucket. They're easier for transporting, keeping a lid on them to keep the water out. But just simple, basic pan here. I don't like to fill the pan up too much because we have to add water, and I don't want to make a big old mess when I mix it up. About 3/4 full of mud. Fresh water. Usually 3/4 of a pan this size. I think this is an 18-inch, 16 or 18-inch pan. 1.5 spongefuls of fresh water. We're going to go ahead and mix it up. A lot of guys like to mix up this way. I just like to turn it around, get the water down to the bottom, let the powder soak up all that fresh, clean water. Once the water touches a hot mud, it starts the activation process. But I like to mix all the loose water in because I don't want to be slopping a bunch of water. It's a little dry here, so I'm just going to add a little more water and just sprinkle it in and just mix it. Mixing hot muds, I would say it's like if you ever baked, you're mixing bread, dough, pizza dough, a heavy pancake batter. It's the same property here. A lot of guys have all these mixing techniques. Use this tool, use that tool. I'm just using a 6-inch knife and just basically scooping all the way down to the bottom. Scoop it, scoop it. You can flip your pan, get the sides really good. Get all that powder in there and just mix it around. Consistency. For first coat, you want it pretty heavy. See how heavy it is? Kind of like if I hang it upside down, look at that. It's like a milkshake, thick milkshake consistency. Sometimes if the mud's too thick, it's not easy to coat with, so just sprinkle a little more water in it and just give it that creamy effect. Nice and creamy mud. It's mixed up thoroughly. A lot of guys like to first coat with a 10-inch knife. I just have one knife, a 12-inch knife. A 12-inch knife, instead of switching back and forth with all these different knives, the only knives I have is a 6-inch knife and a 12-inch knife. There's a bow in the knife. I always do the bow side towards this wall. If you do the curved in the wall, you're going to have a big hump of mud on the wall. So do the curved outward against the wall. These grooves, you can just fill them in. These larger areas are going to float out. We're not going to put the mud on super heavy. Maybe joint compounds you put on a little heavier because they shrink back overnight because they have water in it. These hot muds, you don't want to put on super thick because you end up troweling out way more mud than it's needed. We're not trying to make a big old hump mud work. Everybody always thinks more is better. Mudding, we're just putting the mud where it's needed, no extra, because it's easy. It's easier to add another coat, say a third coat, fourth coat, than it is to take extra mud out. So yeah, nothing to it, just a quick first coat. This is a 5-minute mud, so you have to work fairly efficiently. You want to get the mud on. If you're using a regular joint compound, you can take your time. If the homeowner didn't repair this, if they let it keep going, it would just keep peeling and peeling, and it would have been worse basically there. Then it peels all the way. These patios get really bad. You end up scraping all the texture back and re-skim out everything and re-texture everything. If they get really, really bad, you're just going to have to pull the sheetrock down and re-sheetrock it. A builder thing, they like to use sheetrock on outside patios. When they build the home, it's a cheaper material to use instead of doing like a cement stucco above or a wood tongue and groove shiplap wood finish. So they just do the sheetrock because it's cheap and easy for them per square foot. But when you do have sheetrock outside, it does get weathered. Even the best high quality sheetrock, in my opinion, shouldn't be outside. If it is going to be outside, the only protection you have is from the elements of the high quality paint, and maybe protect it from getting wind blasted like this one is. That's west side, so the west sun, evening sun hits this, it heat zaps it, the wind blowing in, it does a lot. I'm surprised this patio isn't worse shape than it is. 5-minute mud here. Like I said, you have to work quickly with it. It's already starting to set up on me. These peeled areas you're just skimming over. I put that spray glue on, so it should bond very good. You'll know when it's not bonding because as the mud sets up, you'll start getting a blister here and there. And if you do get a blister, no big deal. It's common in drywall. Change the camera angle here. I know I had someone complain about my videos that I'm moving a lot, but this is not a staged job. Like a lot of people have someone on the job just recording them. I wish I had that luxury. So it's just me. I'm working here, trying to work and film these. These videos are not for me. I already know how to do drywall. Lucky for me, I'm in this trade and do it every day. I just want to make these videos to help you guys out. I see a lot of videos on YouTube and it looks like a lot of guys know what they're doing, but there's a lot of them that look like they're just handyman. These techniques I do are proven. Where I'm located here in Arizona, Phoenix, Mesa area, being a licensed drywaller, I have to do a 2-year warranty on my work. Of course, stuff I don't really like to warranty is like stress cracks, because that's a structural thing. But I'm running out of mud here, so I'm just going to take what I have left in my pan. It's already mixed. I don't want to waste materials, so I'm going to just try to get everything, at least a tight first coat on it. That way it can set up. And as it's setting up, I'm going to clean my tools. Come back and slick it out. But nothing to it. Tight first coat. I don't see any blisters right now. But you can see the worst of the area is that corner bead because it gets damaged from the wind. Any extra mud in your pan, just go ahead and scrape it out. I like to dump in an area where I know I'm not going to step on it because I don't want it stuck in my shoe, like stepping on gum. Stepping on wet mud's no fun. I like to scrape my knives. And then I have a wash up spot in the front, but I'm just going to wash up everything here. Instead of walking back and forth to my truck, I'm just mixing everything right here. Sometimes it's easier to work at the truck, but when there's a walk all the way to the back of the property, I just bring everything out here, so I save my energy and just do everything here. Washing my tools in the bucket. Like I said, you know, when you clean up, mix up mud, and then your water starts getting dirty. This mud isn't terrible, the water isn't terrible, so I can get away with mixing up a second coat with it. It'll set up a little faster, but we'll just have to work faster. The mud's setting up. This is a 5-minute mud. It's already starting to set up that quick, so you have to take your sponge. Mind you, this work mud here is from the homeowner, so I'll go ahead and clean that off when I'm done for him. But you're just troweling down your mud work. The sponge is basically pushing it down. You always get rid of your edges. I like to take my sponge way past the mud area, so I take the dust off the existing texture. That helps the new texture bond. And we're just troweling it down. Nothing to it. You can go either way, back and forth. Sometimes you get scratches if I pull scratches, but we're just mostly just getting the excess mud out. See how you're taking the extra mud off your knife and just dump the mud, no problem. That's why it's easier to work with regular joint compounds. If you don't work with muds every day, just stick to your joint compounds. The joint compound will give you until the next day to fully dry. These hot muds set up as you're putting them on, and you have to turn around and work the muds. You can't just walk away from the job after you do a hot mud coat. If you are going to walk away from the job after you did a hot mud coat, you have to at least slick it up with this technique before you walk away from the job. A lot of guys, it says on the bag, easy sanding. I've never sanded hot mud, and if I ever had, I didn't like doing it. These hot muds you slick out like this with a nice straight new 6. You pull scratches, no big deal. We're going to do a second coat. You're just taking all the rough stuff off, and almost slicking it out almost treats it like a second coat. So that's a nice slicked out first coat. Look how nice that is after you slick it out. Any extra mud, that's all we're doing when we're slicking out. We're taking that extra mud off. That's why we don't want to put a ton of mud on there and blow it out real heavy, because we're going to slick it out and take off the extra material. The material just needs to fill in the repair. It doesn't need to bulge, hump out. They call it crowning out, crown repairs. We don't want a big hump on the ceiling, big hump on the wall. You just wet the area. This is not a dripping wet sponge, but it is fairly wet. And just trowel it down. You can go the other way, no big deal. You can go any direction. You're just troweling the material, pushing it down hard. The mud is not fully dry, but it's setting up. So you have to work with this mud as it's setting up. It's an early morning over here. I wanted to get a start on this patio before it got too hot. It's supposed to be, it's the end of September, but where I live, it's still 100 degrees out during the midday. So early morning patio job. That's when I recommend doing any patio work, outside painting, early morning. Evening's okay, but it's still hot in the evening. The early morning job are these patios. But troweling it down, I'm going to change the angle here on the camera so you can look at my pretty face while I work. I have the camera just on my hat, like a hat cam. Sometimes if it was really hot, I can just do a second coat with a joint compound and then skip trowel after over that joint compound as it starts setting up. But we're just going to go ahead and mix another pan of 5 minute. This is a second coat, so I don't need as much mud. We did 3/4 of pan first go around. I'll just do a half a pan. And the consistency just a tad bit thinner on your second coats. Second coat, since it's been slicked out hot mud, it's more like a third coat. So we're just going to do a tight skim coat for this second coat. The first coat's already done. The second coat just goes over, you go past your first coat, and it fills in any imperfections, any deep spots. Some guys like to coat the opposite direction of their first coat, which is fine because you're filling in the grooves, any waves. That's still kind of thick, so I'm just going to sprinkle in a little more. I washed my first coat tools in here, so the water is dirty. So we're going to work a little faster with this. Once I get it mudded, we're going to clean up right away before the mud sets up. Same thing. Notice I'm using my 12-inch knife again. It's my go-to. I don't like carrying around a bunch of tools. Maybe if I had a nice enclosed trailer and had all that storage, fancy stuff, I can have a bunch of trophy tools. But with this, I just like to have a nice high-quality 12-inch knife. I'm doing a tight skim coat. Skim coat. Skim coat. Pull scratches, go the opposite direction to get rid of your scratches. If you get little debris in your mud, they'll pull scratches. Just try to get those little debris out. But we're just gonna go through and do a tight second coat. Change angle here again. Look at that, that's a nice second coat. Same thing here, I still have some mud left. Remember, I just mixed a half a pan, I still have some left, so I could have mixed less than a half a pan. You work fast enough, it's easier to scrape and clean up your tools. I'm gonna get my tools all cleaned up, take the hot mud back, and then I'm gonna go ahead and mix texture textures in my capped off bucket. That's my joint compounds. I always use joint compounds for my textures. There's guys that use hot muds for textures, but I don't recommend it. Hot mud is grittier, coarser. Maybe if you're in a bind and you had to turn around and paint the job right then and there, you'd use a joint compound, but they never look as perfect as a smooth joint compound type texture. Joint compounds have to dry overnight. These coats that I just did are already dry and set up. They're strong as can be. The texture itself is going to be the cosmetic finish. All textures are different. I'll go down the street and the house down the street has a different type of texture. So the process is the same in the drywall repairs. Add screws, fiberglass mesh tape, first coat, second coat. If need be, do a third coat. Then texture. The coating, repair and coating process is always the same. The texture process may be different in your region. If you had a smooth texture, just want to leave it smooth, do a tight finish coat with a joint compound. Just skim it really tight and then you have a nice smooth area. If you didn't like this texture here, you would just skim it all out, maybe 2 coats of mud and just leave it smooth. But we're going to do a rough skip trowel. I can see the skip trowel goes this direction. So we're going to just skip trowel that whole area, and it's going to be a good part of the ceiling that's going to be skip troweled. Let's double check this. I got to put these tools in the truck, but I want to double check my work. It's a little damp, but I want to work with the mud now instead of walking away with it. It's easier to catch it as it's setting up. Like before, we want to slick it out. We want to slick it out before it dries. Same thing, just go over all your mud work with the wet sponge. Clean 6. You won't have to slick it out as hard. You're just basically troweling down the extra mud. Got extra mud here. Most important is get rid of your edges. Feather your edges so it blends in. You don't want a rigid edge, mud work edge. So when you go to texture and you leave that rigid edge, it'll show up underneath the texture. So feather out your edges, most important with the sponge. Using joint compounds, you would sand the edges, maybe feather them with the damp sponge. Troweling it out, nothing to it. See that extra mud there? I just take it off, dump it in my mud pile. This is 5-minute mud. Look how fast you have to work with it. This hasn't even been 20 minutes and I'm already got this thing first coated, slicked out, second coated, now slicking out again in less than 20 minutes. If you don't want to work this fast, then don't use a 5-minute mud. Just go ahead and use a joint compound. Scrape that square edge. That's an L metal, so I'm scraping that excess mud that overlapped the mud. Basically, we're going over every square inch of our work. Make sure everything's good, slicked out. Ready for texture is what we're making sure this is. Sponge is dry. Go ahead and get some more clean water on it. Hardest thing on this job is up and down the ladder. But remember, the beginning when we did the fiberglass, I got fiberglass under all this mud work, so it's going to be a strong repair. So if it cracks after this, you got something major going on. Structural movement if it cracks after this. But you still want to protect it from the elements. You go slick it out the opposite direction. That just fills in any deep areas, takes off the extra mud. That's all slicking out is. I'd compare it to like wet sanding technique. That's why I like to work with hot muds, because I don't like to make dust and sanding and dust. That stuff's bad for you. Makes a mess. Drywall is already messy enough. We don't want to add dust to the job. Everybody thinks you sand. Drywall's always sanding. Sure, you have to sand in between coats. But if you don't pile the mud on really heavy, there should be little to no sanding if you do it right. Of course, you're going to have to sand if you've only done drywall a handful of times. Working with these hot muds, less sanding. I'm going to take a sponge out past, take that dust off the old texture. That just gives us an knows that our mud's gonna bond well. This little nail hole over here, I'm gonna fix that. But yeah, that looks good. Yeah, she's slicked out, 2-coated. Almost doing all that work, it's a shame to turn around and have to texture it and cover up all my smooth patchwork. Alright, put the lid on my bucket and we go back to the truck and get some joint compound mixed up. Sometimes if you're going to use texture mud, have to mix up texture mud, you want to use fresh water. With this, I already have texture mixed up. I also like to turn up my pan upside down so any extra water drips out. This is a capped joint compound. Looks like I just have enough to finish this job, then I get to put in another box of mud. Mix it up. I like to use a hand mixer. You can also use electric paddle, whatever you have. I like the hand mixers because I don't have to pull out a bunch of tools, extension cords, mixers. The mud's pretty much already mixed up. 6-inch knife, get to use it today for texture. Make sure your tools are nice and clean. Paddle just like that's clean. Okay, this mud's joint compound, the consistency, I would say like heavy pancake batter. And it has to be as creamy as pancake batter. You can't have a bunch of clumps and crap in the mud. If you have clumps and goobers in the mud, you're going to have to strain it. I just have just enough mud here to texture this job, and then we're just going to, at the end of it, we're going to dump in the other box of mud, and I'll show you how to set yourself up for the next box of mud. But we're just going to go ahead and texture it. A lot of guys like to texture with a big knife. I like to use a nice straight knife. Nothing's better than a brand new 6-inch straight knife. I'm gonna have to break the knife in. Right now it's still stainless steel color, but that will all wear off and it'll turn into blue steel hopefully when it's broken in a few dozen works. But the ladder's already here. This area is already set up. But yeah, it's getting warm out here, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this textured up and clean up the sidewalk and hose off the patio. Texture with the hand skip trowel like this, texture goes up and down. Techniques, some guys like to dip, some guys like to scoop. Notice my knife has the same amount of mud throughout the knife. I don't have a bunch of mud on one side and none on the other. It's the same. Sometimes you have to do this number nice, consistent. I like to scoop. I like to start on the outside edge, and just the existing texture will help create the pattern. I'm not pushing down hard. I'm just skipping. It's just gliding over it. This is a nice new 6-inch knife I just got for 10 bucks. I'm already impressed with it. My other knife was still good, but it was just getting rusted and old. And the knives are only like 10 bucks. They don't last as long as they used to. But yeah, after I put my mud on my little area, I like to trowel it down. Sometimes you want to trowel it down the opposite way you put it on. Sorry if I'm spinning around here. Like I said, I have the camera on my hat, on top of my hat bill. So my head moves around a lot of jerky movements. I would like to have a position camera. Maybe as this channel grows, I can buy a second camera, have a second point of view. But we haven't reached that milestone yet in this channel. We're just a poor drywaller. Just a poor drywaller with a poor man's helmet cam, videotaping him skip trowel in the early hours, just so he can put some food on his table tonight for his poor starving family. That's all we are. Just a working Joe. There's a nice skip trowel here with this joint compounds. The mud's right on the money with how thick it needs to be, like a heavy, creamy pancake batter. I like to reach as far as I can while I'm on the ladder. Going up and down ladders, moving the ladders. You do that all day long, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot out of you. I like to go home and still have some energy to enjoy my life. So I try to simplify my movements, less movements whenever possible. Moving a big heavy ladder is one of those that take a lot of energy. I like to take the texture out way past my repair area. It helps blend in the texture, makes the job look clean, professional, quality job. That pool looks tempting because it is hot. We're going to reach out past the area. Easy. It's a heavy skip trowel, so nothing special. Sometimes you have to scrape your knife and just start again. Easy movements, easy. Going to the edge of the corner bead. You also can go off the corner bead like this, but then you have to knock off that edge. texture everything that we mudded over, and then we take it out past our coat areas. Trowel it down. I like to go the opposite way whenever possible, that I put it on the trowel down fills in the areas. This one, trowel it down to the corner bead. That way it's a nice finish on that corner bead edge. But yeah, we're already, look, you saw it at the beginning of this video how small the area was. And now it's ended up texturing 40% of the patio. But that's okay, makes it all new. They turn around and primer this and paint it. They're gonna have a brand new patio when it's all finished. I'd change the point of view. Working outside, moving around like this, sweating a lot is good for you. That's why I'm so good looking. It's not just genes, it's from sweating and working like a idiot is how I keep this beauty going. It's the secrets to youth, is sweating and overworking yourself to the point that you don't want to do it no more. That's the secret to life. Now drywall is easy. Once you've done it enough, it's just, for me, it's another day in the office, just mudding. Some jobs are harder than others. Of course, I don't like to get involved with those type of jobs. That's why you see on my channel it's mostly repair work, because repair work's easier for me to do from start to finish on the project in one trip. Finish the job and move on to the next. Bigger projects, when you're doing 10, 20, 100 sheets of drywall, it turns into a project where you're going to need help, a crew, truckload of materials. That's bigger jobs. I don't do stuff like that anymore. There's no money in it. If there is money in it, you're going to have a very efficient crew, and it'll cost you a fortune to keep that crew going daily, weekly, hourly. So I just do small stuff like this and just try to keep myself busy. But yeah, look at that, it's getting textured. Large area here. I'm just going to keep moving along the home stretch here. Also want to say, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please go ahead and do it. You can also add a comment. I like comments, but if you're going to be negative or say some bad stuff, your comments will not be accepted. Some of these videos might be tied to my name, my business, so I don't allow negativity and bad stuff. If you have something bad to say, that just speaks more about you than me. We're just going to get this whole area skip troweled out. In the meantime, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Hit that like button. By touching that like button, you're going to help the YouTube algorithm. It's a big word for me. I'm a drywaller. Algorithm find my channel. There's so many home improvement channels on here. So many wannabe handyman Joes. They think because they bought a couple tools, now they're professionals. My techniques might not be the best. There might be different techniques in different areas, but this is what works for me. There's always a better technique, better way of doing any type of work, trade, industry. There's always a better way. This is my way, and I'm just making these videos to show you how I do it. now that I'm finished, I like to double check. I like to feather out my texture. I only got a little bit of mud left in my pan. Instead of dumping this mud or wasting my time putting it back in the bucket, I'm just gonna feather out the work area and go past my area, help blend it in nicely, double check any bad areas. All these corners are always notorious for not having enough texture. Fading out the texture makes a nice blend. Make sure everything's knocked down, troweled down. Like I said, I'm sorry if these cameras move around a lot, but this is just how it is. You should see my head, it wobbles so much, they call me a bobblehead. Any light areas, you can add some skip. Any mist areas, we're just feathering it out. Nice blend in, nice transition. Transition the new texture with the old. The whole point of this is to make it look like it's never been repaired. Once they primer and paint this, fresh paint primer, you'll never know that this has been repaired. A little more, I'm going to hit this top area. Got a little bit of mud left. Use it up. It's already in the pan. Save me a job of dumping mud. I don't even want to reuse this mud in my bucket anyways, because I'm going to be dumping a new bucket. I'm taking this all the way to the angle. Well, now cleanup time, clean up all this, sweep it all up. But that's a nice patio. It's starting to really get hot out here, so have to work faster than the sun. It's a nice patio, huh? You just let that dry overnight. At least 24 hours. You don't have to primer it right away, but I recommend getting some primer on it within a week, a month. The sooner the better. At least give it an overnight to dry. Primer it up. Just primer the whole ceiling. Primer the whole ceiling. We're already primering 40-50% of the patio, so you might as well just do the whole thing. Reseal the patio. And then we're going to do a paint. I'm not going to do a paint, but the homeowner is going to paint it up. Primer and paint's the next step after this dries. Go ahead and use a Kills primer and then use a high quality exterior paint. Expensive quality exterior paint. But hey, that's an easy patio repair job. We've done it less than an hour. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, this is a good time to subscribe. I also have other videos on patio repairs, patches, stress cracks, stuff like this. This is what we do. Drywall repairs, stuff that you can try to do yourself. Watch and learn type videos. That's called the skip trowel. Hey, thanks for watching.